Again, we're talking all things health and wellness as we do every Tuesday. A reminder that you can get in touch with us on the WhatsApp line 071-364-0376, or alternatively go onto our Facebook page. You can watch us live on Facebook as well. Camera setup running. Alec, you're on TV, you're on Facebook, you're everywhere. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here and a privilege. Thank you.
It's been a great series, and I know that lots of people have found great value in the conversations that we've had around health and wellness. It's important that we recap a couple of things, and today specifically we'll be talking about nutrition, of course. But before we can get to the nutrition side of things, first we have to assess our overall health and wellness, don't we, to find a reason for making some changes.
Yeah, I mean, we keep coming back to your why, understanding what your purpose is in life, and that you are here and that you were created to lead a victorious life for a purpose. And ultimately, that's to bring glory to the Lord in all that we do and to be useful and of service to others. And that's obviously where the health and wellness fits into it, because if you are not healthy and well, and if your spirit's not housed in a healthy, strong body, then you are hampering and putting a handbrake on your own life.
And there's something powerful about 1 Corinthians 10:31. You know, the more we've had these conversations, the more I've found myself talking about it just in other conversations that I've had with other people, even in messages that I've preached. And that's this simple statement that it's almost as if every Christian knows this, but it can become a revelation. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it for the glory of God. And often we look at it as a one-sided thing. We're just doing it to worship God. But it's reciprocal in nature. When we point everything back to our spiritual cause, creation, our purpose in life, it betters us, doesn't it?
Yeah, so you need to ground yourself in the Word, and the more strongly you are grounded in the Word and that you can actually apply that in your life, the better. The wisdom in the Bible only goes from knowledge to wisdom by you putting it into action, and people don't realize that it's through their inaction that they are often not putting what the Bible is telling us to do about in our lives into action and suffering the consequences. So it's, people need to own up to where they are at today in their lives with regards to their health and wellness, and then we can do something about it when they are keen to make a change.
Yeah, being realistic about where you are at is something we've talked about quite a bit. Okay, let's circle back to nutrition, because there are some really practical things that we can do. But before that, I think, you've been mentioning these three things specifically when it comes to nutrition that are very important.
Yeah, so in general, the modern population, it's the diet that we follow is the acronym is SAD. It stands for the Standard American Diet, but I mean it could be the Standard African Diet too. The reality is that we eat whatever we want, whenever we want, in whatever quantity we want, and that goes for eating and drinking. And because everything's so readily accessible, it creates a problem to us. So the three keys to actually controlling your nutrition is to get a handle on the three levers, as so to speak, which is the quality of what you eat, the quantity that you eat, and when you're actually eating. So the progression that we want to go through with nutrition is first to try and improve our health, and then optimize our nutrition, and then we start fueling for purpose. When you understand how your nutrition works, then you can start optimizing around performance.
This is something we also talked about when we talked about physical exercise, that often us young guns, I'm putting myself in that category, when we were much younger, we trained very much to get an aesthetic goal, especially when you're young, and you skip this overall wellness part. And with nutrition, often people do the same thing. They diet to get that immediate fat loss, you know.
Yes. So we need to make lifestyle changes, and we need to find out what works, because we're all unique. We're uniquely created, and what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. So the easiest place to start is with is to do an assessment, and the simplest assessment of whether you are carrying excess weight is your waist circumference needs to be less than half of your height. If that is the case, congratulations, well done, you're on the right road. But if it isn't, and simplistically, it means that you have got excess fat stored, and the good news with that is that it basically means you're ahead of schedule on your eating. So you can skip a few meals.
And you'll be fine.
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
Yes, you'll be fine.
So
Exactly.
I think the record is a guy that's now voluntarily fasted for 382 days. So it's amazing how long you actually can go without food, especially if you are obese and overweight. So there's significant benefits which we've covered on fasting, but simplistically, the easiest is to look at what they call intermittent fasting, where you are fasting for a 16-hour period and you're consuming all your nutrition in an 8-hour period. So, but the key there, again, is to understand the role that insulin plays.
Yeah, absolutely. Our hunting and gathering has become limited to a walk to the fridge, and so lots
Yeah.
of extra energy that we have. Now, you've mentioned this insulin again, and that plays specifically into the when to eat category to a large degree, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And people can gain some insight about the timing of eating and the effect it has in your body.
Well, insulin is produced by your body to convert the food that you're trying to digest into stored energy. And every single time you need to digest food, you're producing insulin. And its role is to primarily, firstly, store energy in your liver, then in your muscles, and thirdly in fat. Now, the first two are readily accessible, but the third one, which is fat, which is actually the most efficient way for your body to store energy because it's 4 times lighter than muscle. So the misperception that people have is that it's easy to start exercising, and through exercise and cardio exercise in particular, they think they will be able to lose the excess fat that they've stored. So, I just want to make the point of how difficult it is to actually set yourself up to train away excess fat. Firstly, you've got to deplete the stores of energy that you've already got in your liver and in your muscles. So that means you've got, in excess of 2 hours at a relatively high heart rate of energy stored up in those reserves. Then you've got to make sure that insulin isn't present, and when you train, your heart rate must be elevated but not excessively elevated. So to meet all those conditions in a training exercise is doable, but you've got to. It's a big ask. It's much easier to control your weight by controlling what goes in through your mouth than trying to get rid of it by exercising. Exercising is there to celebrate what your body can do. It's not punishment for what you've eaten incorrectly.
Yeah, absolutely. But you've mentioned the word controlled, and that we would be able to control. There's got to be a measure of self-control, which again comes from that spiritual side. This is all part of the show notes, by the way, that you can actually download. We'll give you all the links as well as we progress through the talk this morning. But almightywarrior.me is where you can find the show notes as well. Proverbs 23 verse 2 is one of the verses, Alec, that's in the show notes. I just want to keep on this subject that where we're at now, because this idea of hedonism, of joy, just trying to get physical pleasures in life, it used to be something that was only for kings, it was for the rich and for the elite and the rulers. But our lifestyle today has made hedonistic pleasures accessible to all. Proverbs 23 verse 2, well, from verse 1 says, when you sit down and dine with the ruler, consider carefully what is set before you. Talking about food.
Yeah.
And put a knife to your throat if you possess a great appetite. Do not crave his delicacies, for that food is deceptive.
Yeah.
And the Bible warns you that you can be deceived with food because your flesh desires it. It used to be at the table of kings. These days, it's at the table of your local takeaway shop that's around the corner.
Yeah.
But the same principle applies.
It does, and there we start talking more around the quality of what you're eating, and simplistically you can divide your food sources up into two categories. Those that are nutrient dense, whole foods, like your proteins, vegetables, and fruits, and healthy fats, and then you've got the energy dense foods, which are your refined carbohydrates, your white flours, your sugars, your unhealthy polyunsaturated oils and things like that. And if you can move the average and you can start eating more wholesome foods and less unhealthy foods, then you will start making a tremendous improvement to your health. So the easiest way to start on the journey to improving your weight management is through fasting, and then looking at refining and the quality of the food that you eat, and then lastly is your portion sizes, the quantity. When you do eat, we eat way too much. So I can't believe that how little I actually need to eat to be able to perform and to effectively run my daily activities.
Yeah, Alec, I think on a more personal level, maybe just from your story, obviously being quite disciplined in the way that you've done things, Paul reminds us in 1 Corinthians 9:27, I strike a blow to my body, I make it my slave, so that after I've preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified. But this idea of a blow to my body, making it a slave, comes from the realization that Paul has that he's in control, and not the physical flesh is in control. No, his soul, his being, his spirit is in control.
Absolutely. And again, I want to just stress the alignment. So your flesh, your carnal nature is pulling you in one direction, and your spirit, which is led by the Lord, is pulling you in another direction. And you need to get your soul, your will, your mind, your emotions under the control of the Spirit. And to do that, you have to be in charge of your body, in order to actually to get it in line, so that everything is pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised by the power that you have in that. I think we'll talk about fasting now. I think again, and some of the misconceptions that people have, like we've mentioned already, that I'll starve, I'll lose muscle, I won't be healthy, I'm not getting enough nutrition, I'm very tired, because we have certain misconceptions that maybe our body is telling us. The same with healthy eating. Lots of people don't eat healthy because they just say, well, I can't eat it.
Yeah.
But they don't realize that once you start eating healthily, that's what you also start to like. It changes what you desire.
Yeah. On a habitual side of things, a lot of things that we do are habits. And if we realize that some of our habits are bad habits and we can replace them with good habits, then we also start moving in the right direction. But just to pick up on what you were saying about fasting, it's untrue that if you fast it will negatively affect your muscle mass. Fasting most certainly doesn't. Whereas if you restrict your calories, it does have a negative impact on your muscle mass. So fasting doesn't. It works basically on any diet, regardless of what you're on. So we don't need to have discussions about carnivore and vegan and paleo and keto and all sorts of other things. Initially, all we need to do is get control of when we're eating and the benefits of that, and then that also is the easiest way to control your insulin production. So if you realize that your body is created to store and convert what you eat into energy, eat and drink into energy, then every single time that you're snacking or eating, you are forcing your body to produce insulin, and you're storing whatever you've eaten as energy. So, what the final point that we're moving towards is to fuel for purpose. So if you know that you're going to spend the day vegging in front of the TV, then you also know that you don't need energy. So, if on a day like that you go and eat excessively, then most certainly it's going to get stored as fat, because your reserves in your muscles and in your liver are nowhere near depleted. And then on the flip side is when you get to the point where you are fueling for purpose. If you know that you're going to be doing some sort of a marathon or a big endurance event, then you also know your heart rate is going to be very high. You know that you're not going to have sufficient energy in your stored in your liver, and then you need to consume the appropriate energy dense foods like carbohydrates and sugars to fuel yourself. So depending on what you're doing, your source of energy and fuel can be changed and adapted, but you need to understand how it all works. And ultimately you first want to restore health in your life before you even worry about fueling for purpose.
Okay, jumping to that third strategy that we have. So we've talked quite a bit now about when you are eating. The power of fasting specifically plays into that. Then we've talked about the value of our meals, what we are eating, and we could mention some tips maybe a little bit later again. But another key thing that we can change is actually how much we are eating, and that's just portion sizing. And
correct.
Yeah.
So on that, there's all sorts of tips and tricks that you can do, but essentially what you're trying to do is you don't need to go back for seconds and thirds, and you don't need to have excessive portions. So you're just putting your body and your intestines under undue stress unnecessarily. So you're getting in more than enough food to actually get the machine to function. After that, you're just eating because it's lacquer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the stories, again, maybe more personal, that you can talk about is just the combination of what you've seen while fasting and your training regime, because it's something we haven't mentioned in quite some time, that your focus largely is endurance obstacle racing and adventure racing, which is prolonged periods of exertion, exercise, and you've managed to do so on fasting diets.
Yes. So there's a well, let me say firstly it's progressive. So from a nutrition point of view, the more overweight you are, the better it is for you to fast for longer durations. So the more you are optimally your weight is, the shorter the duration of the fast you need to do to control your nutrition and your eating. But having said that, I started with the 16-8. I then progressed to what they call one meal a day, where you basically only eating once a day. And then I went back to eating twice a day, Monday through Thursday through Friday, and I totally fast on a Monday and a Thursday. So if you work that out, I've gone from having 21 meals a week to having 10 meals a week, and my weight is now very close to optimal, and my performance has gone through the roof, so I first got fit and strong, and only after that did I actually get to the point where I understood nutrition and lost weight, and that's made a tremendous difference in my sport.
All right, we've really focused on nutrition in today's show, but a reminder for everybody listening out there, this has come over multiple weeks, and that it really is a holistic way of looking at this. It's about spirit, your spiritual health, your emotional, mental health, and then your physical health. Nutrition is a big part of that. Ephesians 4:16 says, "From him the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love." That's one of the driving forces, that purpose, as each part does its work. It's really all of these things coming together. It's not just nutrition.
Yeah.
It's that why again.
But I think there too, we need to realize that they're not just talking about the body of Christ as in the church. That is equally as applicable to your physical body. So your physical body, if you've got an ear infection, it affects your whole body. If you've got if you are overweight, it affects your whole body. So you can practically apply that in your body, and obviously then in the effect that you have if you are unhealthy on the greater body of your friends, family, congregation, etc. So ultimately you need to be healthy and well to be able to function as a healthy, well part of the larger body. And when you are driven and you understand what Christ went through so that you can be redeemed and have a healthy, victorious life, then you can do nothing less than look after yourself, to empower yourself to bring glory to Him, and to be of service and useful to others.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, a couple of messages. Good to see lots of people interacting. Anthea says, "I've been fasting intermittently now for 8 weeks. Do 24-hour periods intermittently and seeing great results." Ken says, pro-OMA, that 1 meal a day strategy.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, personally, I've done fasting like that. And the reason why, for some people, it's easy to eat healthily. For others, it's more easy to discipline themselves by not eating. Once I start eating, it's very difficult for me to control portion sizes, etc. So if I'm eating 6 meals a day, like the conventional wisdom said, to make those 6 meals small was impossible for me. But to cut down some meals works really well. Ken says the same. Helped me maintain gains through strength cycle, actually training quite intensively, and
Yes.
saw great results.
So, I've been trying to see how far I can push, and my record at the moment is that I've been able to do cumulatively 7 hours of hard training during a period when I was on a 42-hour fast. So your body is capable of tremendous feats. I've been looking recently, as in yesterday, I've seen that the Iron Cowboy in America has just broken the record. He's done 100 Ironmans over 100 consecutive days. So to put that into perspective, that's almost a 4-kilometer swim, 180 kilometers of cycling, and a 42K marathon back to back every day for 100 days. So it is absolutely incredible what you can do with your body that the Lord has created for you. So not everybody has a desire to do that or a need to do that, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done.
Yeah, the words Genesis 3 verse 9, it's part of the show notes for today as well, by the way. It resonates. But the Lord God called to the man, "Where are you?" And leaving that question to people out there, where are you? Do you realize what's possible? Do you realize what's the inherent creation mandate that God has given you, that He loves you, cares for you, that, as Alec mentioned earlier, He died for you? And now ask yourself, but where are you in terms of that relationship with God?
You need to be all you can be. You need to experiment, and you need to push the boundaries of what you're capable of doing. And the Lord created you to do that, to be creative and to push the boundaries and to challenge yourself. That is what we need to do. We don't want to get to the end of our lives not having reached our potential because we were too lazy and too unfit and unhealthy to actually do so.
Absolutely. Alec Avierinos joins me as he does every Tuesday. Great show. Thanks again, Alec, for today.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, the show notes are available on almightywarrior.me, and there's quite a lot of content there and videos on the YouTube channels and things that are there, and some courses, a challenge. So it's all there, and the links to Altia Nell, who does the nutrition, are there too. So I encourage you to get professional assistance so that they can help you personalize a solution to help you meet and achieve your goals and objectives. And don't be hard on yourself when you mess up. Just get right back at it.
Absolutely. We mentioned earlier in our devotion for today that where our treasure is, our heart is. Sometimes it's worthwhile moving some of that treasure to your health and your wellness, looking after yourself. Like Alex said, sometimes we have to invest, get professional help as well. But hopefully you're inspired. Go to Impact Radio's Facebook page as well for the full conversation if you've missed it or only heard a part of it. And you can also share the conversation with friends and with family as well if you found it inspirational. Just past 8:30 now. Alec will be back with us again. But big thanks to him and the team from Almighty Warrior. Go to almightywarrior.me.